Yes.
Is it hypocritical to jump on the Duke bandwagon now because Zion's there?
A lot said there. We'll slowly unpack this. But to stay in alignment with the question and answer it directly, no, it's not hypocritical. If you were a Duke hater, congratulations. They've conformed to you and your ideals and the things that you hated about Duke. They changed their ways. If you were someone in the 80s and 90s who looked at Duke as not being urban enough, not representing the black players equally, if you were someone, and I wasn't one of those people, true disclosure, full disclosure, I was too invested in my own career to be worrying about what these guys were doing and not doing at the collegiate basketball level. But I will say that anyone who was on the other side of Duke, you should be thankful for this moment because they came to you and now they agree with your ideals.
They still elitists.
They all are, though. But that's the second question.
I think this is about Zion, not about Duke. I think it's about the name on the back of the jersey more than the name on the front of the jersey. Because I think right now if Zion was playing for Kentucky, it would be all about Zion, right? I think if he was at UNC, it would be all about Zion, too. I don't know that Duke has changed itself so much as Zion is the reason. I don't think this is a Duke bandwagon. I think it's the Zion bandwagon. And I think when he leaves, people can go right back to hating Duke because they probably aren't going to have another Zion Williamson ever again. By the way, Vanderbilt's elitist here. You got a Columbia elitist. All states in a high cotton right now. Well, I don't know. Sal, you got...
Oswego State, New York. I could drift out of the point. No, I hate to say it, but I agree with you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime player, and I think once he goes away, no one cared who Bo Jackson played for. If you were a Rams fan, you want to see Bo Jackson take charge and go crazy and break bats over his knees. This is going to be the same thing. Unfortunately, if you root for Zion, you have to root for Duke. If you want that thunderous slam... But if you want that thunderous dunk down one at the end of the game, you're going to be rooting for the team. His points have to count. But the only thing I'll say is, like, he'll be gone. You can move on to the next guy. This guy is just going to be great. He's already going to be the second heaviest NBA player once he gets there. He doesn't have to grow. He's a freak of nature. Everyone wants to be on the bandwagon. Everyone wants to root for him, and that's why we're doing it.
I just read before this show that Duke is the heaviest Vegas favorite since Kentucky in 2014 or 15. And to me, that's not, because this tournament to me is wide open.
Yes. Yeah.
What that says is everybody's oh, I know who Zion is, and I want to see Zion win. Let me throw money on Duke. And I'm sitting there going, no, man, I still enjoy disliking Duke. And I love Zion. But I'm not rooting for Duke basketball. I'm sorry. I want him to get beat in the first round.
That was a really fantastic open, by the way. Great essay. You should be writing on television and on the internet. Go ahead and make that argument right now, or newspaper. But here's the other thing. I think what you hit on, to me anyway, is the distinction between the meritocracy and the aristocracy, right? I think Duke very often feels like the aristocracy. And in America, I think uniquely, we don't like the idea that because of how you were born, you deserve...
Vanderbilt break. Explain aristocracy.
Aristocracy is like...
viewers.
Yeah, for everybody out there. I think it's a big
Yeah.
distinction, because I've had this conversation a lot. If Marcellus went to Columbia, I went to Vanderbilt, I would say we are meritocracy. I don't know your background. My family was not wealthy, so I felt like it was a really great opportunity to get in there. I think what people see is they want to believe in the meritocracy, that no matter where you come from, you can rise up and end up at an elite institution. I think all too often what we see is what we just saw at USC, the aristocracy. Your mom and dad are wealthy. You're going to buy your way into a school. And I think Duke, uniquely because of being in North Carolina, you got UNC, which is a great public school filled with North Carolinians. And then you got Duke, the private school that brings in all these East Coast rich kids, right? And so the tension that I don't think gets talked about enough is we like the meritocracy in this country, but I think Duke very often feels like the aristocracy, and that's what I don't like. And I think that's what you don't like.
I love it, and I wish I had known what aristocracy was in my monologue, because I would have hammered this point.
Go back. Let's start over.
You had to be from a two-parent family
yes,
to go
it's
play
aristocracy.
at Duke.
Yes.
You had to come from Grant, and I love Grant Hill.
Yeah.
Love his dad. But again, that's an elite family. Grant Calvin Hills, his dad, his
mom was the roommates of Hillary Clinton.
Yes. Duke is very elite.
But then, see, that's where I get lost. And when you're aspirational, no one ever says, you know what, my goal is to be average. My goal is to be with the crowd. Your goal is to aspire to be the greatest. Wherever you want to say is synonymous with being elite. There are elite athletes that go to Duke, and there are elite athletes that go to other programs. What became the distinction is, one, there were more white elite athletes at Duke, and two, the distinction was, you know what? The level of black player at Duke. We started to destroy a Grant Hill who is aspirational, who is coming from a family that we all wish and desire to come from or to leave our family in that position. Think about it. You got an executive mother and a father who was playing pro ball, and then the son says, hey, I have now got talents to a place where I'm elite, and now we're going to now undermine those same talents. But then we look at John Thompson, respect, but then we say, oh, see, that's the kind of coach I want, kind of program I want. He went to jail to go get a player. Why? Because the player was elite. Like, elite is the conversation, but it's also the commonality. All these programs, no matter how it is seen and how it is perceived, they all want elite athletes, black, white, nuclear family, or dysfunctional.
Here's what I would say also, and I'll let you jump in here in a sec. I think what people fight on the elite version is George W. Bush elitism. You're standing on third, you're born on third and thought you hit a triple, right? I think that's what a lot of people fight against. Right. But elite overall aspirational, as Marcellus is saying, I think is a good thing. Yeah. I think the challenge is for a school like Duke to not be the version of USC where everybody's buying their way in the back door, side door entrances. You want people who deserve to be there, everybody being treated equally, I think.
I think Coach K, I mean, you can label it whatever you want, but elitist or not, Coach K is 72 years old, something like that. He's going to win at all costs. He's figured out the game. Once you get to that age, you get to Jerry Jones, you're like, all right, I'm taking the Amari Cooper. I don't care if this is a dumb deal. I'm doing it right now, and we'll shake it out at the end. You know, elitist, he's at 66 McDonald's All-Americans. So he goes after the good players at any cost. So you'll see. And the problem I think that's going to happen is in the future, you're going to see a guy like Zion. We saw he blew out his shoe. There was a chance he was going to sit out this whole tournament. Like, you might see guys like this saying, hey, you know what? Thanks for the scholarship. I'm sitting out the whole year. I'm not going to Blacksburg on a Tuesday night to play Virginia Tech. I'll see you in the ACC tournament, and I'll get you to the Elite Eight, and you'll be happy with that.
Damn, that's a fascinating thing, and I'd love to see that happen at Duke, to be quite honest with you. I would have loved Grant Hill more had he played at Michigan State or Georgetown or someplace else other than Duke.
What about Chris Webber, who was heavily recruited to go to Duke, decided to go to Michigan? Oh, he went to the black school. He went to the Fab Five. But if he were a Duke player, how would we perceive one Chris Webber?
A bit differently.
That's messed up.
But again, but Marcellus, what I think the hypocrisy is the point that you made, is there are a lot of people that had a problem with Duke because of the color of their superstars.
Yep.
And that, to me, is wrong. I could care less about the color of the superstar. I don't like the snobby and the whole little deal of like, we're more ethical, we're doing it in a cleaner way than everybody else, we're not cheating. I'm like, no, man, if you're in NCAA basketball and the way this system is with amateurism, don't give me this stuff of you're better than Jerry Tarkanian, you're better than UNLV, you're better than Steve Fisher in Michigan. Get out of there. You in the same game as them. You can't be a little bit pregnant. That was my problem with Duke. And that's why, again, I think it's fair to criticize Duke as an elitist school and a group of elite, because they reveled in that whole deal. Their fans, and I believe Coach K and the whole program reveled in it. We're better than everybody else.
Careful how you got and received that message, because what really happened was every other program was going through scandal and Duke was silent. They're not sitting there applauding. They're not sitting there cheerleading. They're just sitting there saying, hey. And so what you now misperceive is, oh, they're reveling in this. Oh, look at them pointing their finger down at these other programs. What are you supposed to do? Admit your own guilt in the moments that other teams are getting caught? Yeah. So I think that messaging got a little confused to a lot of people who were just sitting there saying, when is Duke going to get caught? Duke's like, we're not.
I'll also say this. I think Coach K deserves some credit here for going after the one-and-dones, because the elitist move by Duke would have been to say, hey, we want kids who are going to come in and stay multi-years.
Yeah.
But they
all
made
he
the
just
decision
wants to do is win.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But a lot of old school coaches, get stuck in this running the same game plan over and over again.
Because winning was most important.
It matters to him more than anything else.
Yes. And that's been my point about Duke. They were celebrated. Maybe it's just the media, and maybe Coach K and the players didn't want anything to do with it. I tend to doubt it. I think their fan base, and again, I spent some time in Durham. I've been I've watched games in Cameron Indoor. That group of fans, that program thought they were better than everybody else, and it drove me crazy. I love watching Christian Laettner play, any of them, Bobby Hurley, any of them play, but the little snobby attitude didn't sit right with me.
Was UNLV before their time? Because I think UNLV, those teams would be even more beloved now than they were back then.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say snobby, because we always make that the connotation that comes, or the description of being an elitist. You can be elite in your thinking, even in what you have attained, but doesn't mean you're snobby. I don't look at Duke as snobby. What I looked at them as, they were a team that had an identity, a philosophy, and a program. And they were trying to plug situations into their program, where most programs look like we're just trying to find talent, put it together, make gumbo, and see what happens. Coach K from day one said, no, there's a certain style, certain character, certain citizen that I'm looking for. And now it's so funny that all the people who talk about athletes when they transition into the real world, oh, they're not prepared at anything outside the game. And Coach K was like, day one, I'm trying to get guys who are well-rounded, who are prepared for more outside the game. And it all changed when Kyrie went first overall, became a champion, and then he realized, hey, what a one-and-done Kyrie, I can keep doing this and still have great citizens.
Something about the Duke program, and maybe it's my bias because I'm from Indiana, because Coach K's off the Bobby Knight tree. Indiana basketball didn't strike me the way Duke basketball does. And it's really the same blueprint. It's the same. Indiana had a lot of white stars, but they also had Isaiah Thomas in the early 80s, but they had Ken Benson. Steve Alford led them to a national championship. Indiana just didn't feel as snobby. And, it's, again, maybe Indiana, different type of school than Duke. And so
early Indiana, because there was a 2.0 Indiana. The latter years,
I think the private school aspect that Duke is this. If you look at the history of Duke, they really blew up in the last. Sort of like Georgetown, honestly. They used the basketball program to help create an elite aura that surrounds them. And I think as part of that, they definitely made the argument we're better than everybody else around us. And now they basically do what everybody else does, which is take the one and done. So I think there's a lot of truth to the criticism of Coach Cal there.
Yeah, if Indiana had a little more, they have more grit than Duke. You throw a chair across the floor, and that lasts 10, 15 years.
Bobby Knight had no class. Maybe that's what I liked about it.